Recording in progress.
Thank you. As Matt said, I'm putting on my Public Works hat, and I just want to make a quick announcement about an upcoming construction project that we will be commencing in the first week of June. That is our David Avenue Rehabilitation Project. So this project will allow us to do some pretty essential sewer upgrades, pavement restoration, and add pedestrian access pathways through Higgins Park. We're starting the first week of June and it's going to run through August. But I do want to call out an important note that this will include a hard closure on David Avenue from Forest to Divisadero for a portion of that construction period. We do have some information about the scope of work and the construction timeframe on our website, cityofpacificgrove.gov. And I would highly encourage folks to subscribe for updates there, where we will be putting updates throughout the duration of construction. Those who live adjacent to the property have received a mailer or will receive a mailer in the very near future here. And this is a very essential project, not only for our underground sewer infrastructure, but also for our pavement.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Joy. Congratulations to you, Joyce. We look forward to more great work from you, as we always have over the years, and your leadership. At this time, we'll take up to item 4, general public comment. This is to comment on items that are subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council, but that are not appearing on our agenda tonight. So if anyone has general public comment, please step forward in the chamber now and raise your hand online. And we will take the chamber comments first.
Hello. I have to say, Public Works was fabulous doing the 5 alleys in Pacific Grove a few months ago. The city employees are really great. So I'm here tonight. My name is Jiva Arkanan, a resident of Pacific Grove. I'm here with Ken Parker here in the front row, representing the local citizen organization referred to as COAST. For several years, COAST has extensively researched the historical significance of the Point Pinos Reservation. We have learned that the entire point of land, which is broader than the original Lighthouse Reservation, including 1352 Lighthouse Avenue and other land, is certainly deserving of historic designation due to its cultural, historical, and environmental importance. We are not the first to recognize this. In 1851, President Millard Fillmore recognized the importance of permanently preserving this point of land from sale. In 1965, the PG City Council passed a resolution number 4450, bestowing that same importance to this iconic coastal treasure. COAST is currently in the process of developing an application for historic district designation of Point Pinos. As this application progresses, we look forward to providing you with an overview of our findings and seeking your support. Tonight, we are leaving with you a letter from COAST to the city of Pacific Grove regarding our efforts. Ken has those, or maybe you've already passed them out. Okay, great. And I wanted to also provide you one of the few remaining booklets produced by the city in 1966. It includes a resolution, and a copy of that resolution is in the brochure, but it's also in the packet you've received. And also a summary of frequently asked questions about our efforts. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We do have those up here. We'll go to Ms. Anton.
Good evening. I'm Jeannie Anton, and I'm here to update you on the Chautauqua Hall renovation project. Recently, we had a representative from Page and Turnbull here. She came to photograph the building, and one of her comments was, wow, it's a lot bigger than I expected. And she was photographing it so that we could get the application for the National Historic Landmark status moving along. And she sort of assured me that she thought she could finish it in the next month or so. And then we just have to cross our fingers that it will be accepted at the national level. And I don't know what their time frame is exactly, but I will definitely keep you posted on that. I'm pretty excited. She also came up to the barn after the photography session and looked through all of our files and made copies of things. So she has everything that I know that we have anyway. We're also, the Friends of Chautauqua, we're in the process of getting an MOU with the city. And I would thank the city attorney for being part of that and Dan Go for putting it together. We want to make sure everything is, on the up and up and legal. And then meanwhile, we're continuing our fundraising. And our newest partner is with Back Porch Fabrics. And they have offered, some of the people in Back Porch have offered quilts for sale. And some will be raffled, some will be for sale. They will be exhibited in Back Porch Fabrics. I'll put the address, 218 Grand. And they'll also be on their website. And so they'll a little bit more on that when they get everything set up. So mainly thank you for your support and thank you for your continuing support.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all the efforts on Chautauqua.
Good evening, Sally Moore. Appreciate having you all here. I was at Caledonia Park a few days ago watching a couple kids play basketball. And there's just a couple little strings hanging from the hoops. And I just think that that's a shame. So I have brought a couple nets and I'm hoping that Public Works can find some time to put these in and get everything in order for summertime play. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Go ahead, yeah. And I support that. It was always a bummer when you're playing ball as a kid and there's no net, you wouldn't hear that sound if you could ever make that happen. Okay, we'll go to the online. Anyone wishing to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not see any hands raised online.
Okay, we'll move it on to the consent. I'll close general public comment for the evening. We'll move it on to the consent agenda. And we did really receive ample written comment, so don't think that we got off easy on the public comment tonight. So we'll take it to the consent agenda. This is matters of routine and non-controversial matters generally. And I'd like to ask, is anyone on the council like to pull an item on the consent agenda? Yes, go ahead.
I suspect it will happen anyway, so I'll go ahead and pull 7A.
7A, yeah, okay. I was gonna do the same, so I appreciate you. Okay, and then 7A is the salary and compensation increases. So that's been pulled just for people in the audience, so we don't have to hear that 4 or 5 times. Anyone in the chambers wishing to pull an item on consent? Seeing none. Anyone online wishing to pull an item on consent?
Yes, Mayor, I have one hand raised. Lisa Gianni.
Thank you. I'd like to pull 9B, Community Goals and Work Plan.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone else? Is that all the hands?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on consent absent the 7A and 9B.
I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Emilio.
Second.
Tied goes to Ralph. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, discussion. Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, last time around, there was a consent agenda item pulled, which we were going to hear this time around. Is that going to be heard?
It's going to be heard next meeting. Mr. Go is going to handle that item,
Okay, all right.
and he's
thank you.
not present tonight.
Okay, thanks.
So we had a second by Rao. So on the consent agenda, without those two pulled items, I'll take a voice vote unless there's any discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. We'll move item 7A, the increasing compensation. We'll hear that right now. And we will hear item 9B as 13B, the last item of the night. So I will, at this time, we have received, we'll take up item 7A, the second read of the ordinance increasing compensation. And Mr. Pyrick has already made his presentation at the last meeting. This is the second read, so I'll turn to my colleague, Councilman McDonald, for her comments. And then I'll open it up to the public. Actually, I think I'll maybe open it up to, would you like me to open up? I'll open it up to the public now to speak on the increasing compensation. Is there anyone in chambers wishing to discuss that item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take the public comment online. if there is any.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Inga Lawrenson Domer.
Thank you. Mayor and council, I want to urge the mayor and the 3 council members to not profit and feed off the taxpayer backs without bringing your self-serving salary increases to a vote by those taxpayers. You campaigned on fiscal responsibility and service to Pacific Grove, except for one council member who was quote unquote appointed in a done deal. Do you really think your accomplishments deserve this self-given pay hike in the face of Pacific Grove looming economic woes? The city attorney very disingenuously neglected to mention a vote of the people in his options listed in this agenda report and set the stage for your greed. You yourselves just plowed ahead. Are you afraid of voters sharing in your self-evaluation? Please don't continue with a second read and let your constituents decide by the power of their votes in their next election. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else, Ms. Kendall?
Yes, we have one more hand raised. Christy Thomas.
Hi. I just was going to say that I was so deeply disappointed to see that on the consent agenda. When it, because it was supposed to be the second reading in lieu of, the public opposition. And then again, the whole incident of the 90 seconds last meeting just seemed authoritarian, but it just is alarming that your persistent lack of accountability on the critical financial issues, the whole 6 million in unfunded pension liabilities and the other ongoing concerns just seems to be swept under the rug. And it's like total denial delusion. And when he gives his report, which you probably will tonight, those aren't abstract number. They're real challenges that demand attention and honest reckoning. And then the whole justification based on the tired old DEI narrative, such as, for the future candidates that need childcare and other financial obstacles. Well, I understand the importance of removing barriers to civic participation, but come on, most jobs don't include those benefits and effective services. And these positions are not just financial support, but their time, commitment, and competence. And it's about having enough free time to be competent and effective. And money doesn't buy you more time. And then later on, it's going to come back up about medical benefits for less than part-time work. And that raises serious questions, because on what basis does that make fiscal or ethical sense for this community? And then finally, just because something is mandated at the state level does not mean it's in the best interest of our city. As we've seen with the state's housing mandate, not all top directives are practical or beneficial for cities like Pacific Grove. Local governance should not be about automatic compliance, but about advocating for what works for PG. So I just urge you, this council and leadership, to reevaluate how decisions are being made and to place greater value on transparency. These people in PG deserve nothing less. So I really thank you for your attention and adjusting your thinking a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnaud Teal.
Good evening. Just want to repeat what I have mentioned last 2 weeks ago. I would like for this to please go in front of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you. No further public comment online, Mayor.
Okay, we'll close public comment on the item. And I'm just going to make a couple of comments before I recognize my colleague. I'm fully supportive of the item as written, except for there are 3 paragraphs in the recitals, and I'm fully supportive of it taking effect immediately upon the second read after 30 days. And I want to clarify that there are no medical benefits in this, and so I'm going to ask the city attorney to strike through when we do hold the second read and adopt this tonight. Strike through any surplusage in the ordinance that relates to medical benefits, so it's clear to the public that we are not passing medical benefits tonight and in that ordinance. So we'll take care of that. That will be my motion if no one else makes it. And I just want to respond to one of the callers that for some people, the time is the money is important because it does symbolize time in some jobs. And I do think it is important that we do our best to get new talent in, people that might not otherwise be able to do it, especially in the next round of elections when we have open seats and things like that. So I don't want to rehash it. We've already had all of our arguments, but I do think that needs to be said after that comment. So I'm going to recognize Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I definitely appreciate all the comments we have received. We've actually received them in both directions. There are people in support of it for various reasons. There are ones who would like to see council make enough that they can afford to have the time to do better service to the community. I will say that I definitely see the value in us. Oh, okay, thank you. So I guess to recap, since the screen went off, thank you. Yeah, there is definitely some value to be had in making it, reducing barriers to participation. And one thing I appreciate about this ordinance is that we haven't gone as high as some of the local communities. It's been just the minimum, or I guess technically the maximum, but it's what was recommended by the state to remove barriers to participation because there have been challenges getting people who can participate. That said, I also believe it is important to have the public be more a part of that discussion. For that reason, I personally wouldn't support it being effective immediately. I would want it to be for the next council because we did all come on anticipating that we would have the current salary. So for that reason, I won't support it at this time. I would like to see it come before the public for a vote, or at the very least, have it take effect after the current elections, at the next election cycle. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments? I'll entertain a motion and we can. Sure, of course. Go ahead. Councilmember Walker.
I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay? All right, excellent. I believe there's it's possible to do the right thing the wrong way, which is what I think we have actually done here. The disregard of democracy in favor of expediency is actually the foundation of authoritarianism, which is what we're edging into here. And it also seems contradictory to disregard democracy in order to get more people involved in our democracy. And I just wanted to voice my my opinion on that point and my disappointment. I do still feel that the raise is the right thing for our community. I just feel we're going about this the wrong way. Thank you.
Councilmember Garfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. I first of all want to thank the people who wrote in. Getting a letter from members of the public gives us an opportunity to mull things over in a way that has fewer time constraints than having a discussion live in council chambers. I've had some really good back and forths with some folks, and I've been able to understand their points of view better, and give them my point of view as well. And I think that that's a very important part of this process, is having that give and take. So those who took the time to write a thoughtful letter to City Council should be commended. It's a very strong part of the way we make decisions. Which is not to ignore the people who make comments here in the chambers. That's also important too. But the writing of a letter gives us a different opportunity. One of the things that I've heard from folks is not whether we're going to do this or not, but when. And I think the when becomes a pivotal issue. People have written in saying this shouldn't take place until after another election. Well, if you have people have this raise or change in compensation take effect when each seat is replaced, you can end up with three people on council being compensated at a higher level than the three senior people that haven't had an election. That's not fair. What I think does matter is what are the characteristics of the job that people are doing and what are the circumstances they find themselves in. And for that reason, I support this ordinance as it is written to take effect 30 days after tonight.
I should.
I think, I'm sorry, are you trying to say something, Mr.
Well,
Herrick?
it's going to, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So.
When you go like this a lot, it does kind of distract me. But I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Ward?
I just wanted to make clear that if the increase were deferred until after the next election, let's say until January 1 of 2027, that increase would go into effect for all council members, not just the three that were elected in
It
November.
depends on which was suggested, and what I'm talking about was what was suggested by the person that gave me the time to think about it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying that that was what your understanding was.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it because I believe that is also one of the suggestions. And to that issue, I would also say that we're doing a job now that has requirements, has difficulties. We have people here who have taken financial sacrifices to serve, and I think that their sacrifice needs to be compensated.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Bernard.
Thank you. I'm in support of the motion as it is and having it in effect as is written. I would say that primarily my reasons for supporting the motion are this has been a really long time before this has come into play. And I don't want to delay it any further because 2 years from now, that means we have to calculate what is 5% increase again. And it's going to go into this circle 2 years from now. If we want to put it in the elections, then it's going to also result in being an election matter in itself. And I don't know if that will actually take fruit or not, because there may be different individuals with different kinds of perspectives on this. What we're doing here is to make sure that we are having participation from a lot of constituents on participating in council activities and running for election, which is the premise of this whole exercise. The other thing I do want to point out is if anybody feels that this is going to cause a budgetary constraint just by you accepting the salary, there is actually a government code which says that you can waive all of your compensation and return it to the city. So if this increase or whatever your entire salary increase is something that you think is of utmost fiscal importance to the city, I recommend just waiving everything. There are several, I would say, donations that are there in the city, Chautauqua Hall, whatever not. I can promise you that that money will be spent correctly and to the right donation fund as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'm going to make a motion to, I know, but let me just, I'm going to make a motion to approve the hold second reading and adopt the ordinance as recommended, with the exception that there are 3 paragraphs on the second to last page that deal with medical benefits. And I think we should strike those.
I actually have a slide prepared for that. If you
Can you show the council that slide? That'd be great.
That's the city clerk.
Thank you. Once you see that, I'll ask for a second. Hold for a second. This is part of the medical benefit recitals, and I'd like to remove those because we're not seeking medical benefits. Just
That's right. This is language that was previously in the ordinance, but since the council decided not to include medical benefits in the ordinance, these sections from the ordinance, these recitals are no longer necessary in their surplusage.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Second by Emilio, and I would now recognize discussion on the motion by Councilmember Rao.
Thank you, Your Honor. Unfortunately, Councilmember Fedori did make some of my points for me, but there is an opt-out clause in here for anyone choosing to decline it. I went back to at least 2014, and to this point, no one has yet to do that. We're a little town trying to do big things, and I would say that the council duties are much more challenging, I think, as the time goes on. And I do agree with Councilmember Pedori that, it would seem that it would be best to wait, but if we wait, then now we're even further behind. And I think that's going to make it even more of a challenge. And when you look at the budget, and I know a lot of people are saying that this is extreme, but if my math is right, it's 0.16% of our budget. So again, as I said last time, it's conservative, it's measured, it's responsible, as well as being overdue. So, and you can donate it, you can do whatever speaks to your heart.
Thank you so much. Any further discussion? Councilmember Walking Stick.
To respond to one of Tina's points, it's good to know that nobody has turned it down since 2014, but I have now turned this pay raise down. So I guess I'll be the first.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Yes.
Council Members Walking Stick,
Nope.
Councilmember McDonald,
No.
Council Members Peduri,
Aye.
Rao,
Aye.
Garfield.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Haynes has her hand raised. I think she wanted to comment on the item, but I think we're kind of past that point. Mr. Burke?
My advice is to let her make a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Haynes.
Thank you. Jan Haynes,
Good evening, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I ask that you delay approval for agenda item 11A, that you delay approval of the Harris and Associates Planning Services Agreement until it is revised to clearly define responsibilities and deliverables. This contract was first approved in 2022. It was vague then, and it remains vague. For example, regarding public hearings, the scope of services simply says public hearing support related to assigned projects, but it doesn't explain what types of hearings, how often, for what purposes, or what roles Harris and Associates will play versus city staff. That vagueness matters. For example, planning commission hearings happen regularly. Which tasks should city staff handle and which should Harris take on? Who will lead preparation, presentation, and follow-up? The council owes transparency to the public about who is to perform those tasks. Also, there hasn't been a participatory public meeting for the housing element since May 2023. The city council receives monthly updates describing meetings that staff attended, but actual engagement with residents has not happened for over 2 years. I suspect that there will be an enormous public outcry when the public eventually learns what the housing element states. Should Harris plan for those future housing element hearings, or Rincon or staff? This proposed agreement gives no direction. The public has a right to know, so the agreement should be transparent about what role Harris will play in housing element related hearings. I'm not opposed to contracting with Harris and Associates, but I do object to the city council approving $876,000 agreement that lacks specifics and that fails to reflect the city's goals for planning services. Please direct the Community Development Department to work with Harris to revise this contract before you approve it, so that it will be transparent and that the public and the council will know exactly what services Harris is expected to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. We appreciate the comment. Now we'll move on to item 11A, the actual item 11A, which is the local coastal program amendment. And I'm doing it. I put that 13B. Okay, so 11A, please.
Good evening, Mayor Smith and council members. The council will consider this evening final adoption of technical amendments to the local coastal program regarding coastal hazards. City staff prepared the proposed LCP amendments in coordination with Coastal Commission staff as defined by the grant agreement. And these amendments are intended to implement the updated technical analysis and tools used to determine coastal hazard vulnerability. This LCP amendment has been an approximately 3-year process, which is now nearing completion. And this is the next to last step in the process. Process began in 2022 with council direction to staff to submit an application to the Coastal Commission for grant funding. And the Planning Commission considered and initiated the LCP amendment in October 2024 and recommended the council adopt the amendment or amendments as proposed. And in November of 2024, the council considered and approved a resolution of intent to adopt the amendments. And on April 11th, 2025, the Coastal Commission certified the amendments. Staff is now returning to the council for the final adoption steps. Therefore, staff recommends the council adopt the recommendation to acknowledge receipt of the Coastal Commission certification, find the amendment statutorily exempt from CEQA, read the title of the proposed ordinance, waive further reading of the ordinance, introduce and hold the first reading of the proposed ordinance, and direct a summary of the proposed ordinance be published. This concludes staff's presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take it out to the public on the LCP amendments. Anyone in chambers wishing to speak to the local coastal program amendments? Anyone online wishing to speak to the local coastal program amendments?
I do not see any hands raised online, Mayor.
Go ahead and bring it back. Close public comment on the matter. The item 11A, local coastal program amendments, and we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. There are an adoption and completion of this, which was not a small endeavor. And there are many steps, but I think that the presentation was brief and to the point, and that wouldn't be too big of a lift here. So any comments? Yeah, Councilmember Drury.
Thank you, and thank you for preparing the presentation. It just had a general question. So this was all as a result of the coastal hazard maps that was sanctioned in 2022, resulting in us updating the amendment, et cetera, correct? Is that was the premise?
Yes, the city contracted with Integral Consultant to updated mapping information.
Right.
And that information will be added to the GIS layers that staff uses to evaluate coastal hazard vulnerability.
Okay, thank you. My question, the related question there is this like a decade, every 10 years we have to do it by law? Is there any requirement to update the coastal hazards map on a routine basis or not?
Not the coastal hazard map. Well, I'm sorry, I take that back. There is a requirement in the policies of the local coastal program and the land use plan to periodically, to use the best and most current available data to evaluate coastal hazards. And so that does imply periodic updating.
And so there's no definition. So it's up to us to decide when it gets updated, correct?
In this case, the city was fortunate to receive a grant from the Coastal Commission to update the GIS layers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Garfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. This was a very intriguing map, Figure 3. And I'm wondering if it's available, is searchable for somebody who might wish to find out what their address looks like. Closer, is there a more interactive version?
Do have a database online at the city's community development website, and a person will be able to go and click on their specific parcel, and that'll bring up the information regarding these coastal hazards on the map in real time once we get the GIS shape layers added to that GIS map. So will be done shortly.
shortly, is shortly like tomorrow or 3 weeks from now or
I would
in a
say
couple months?
probably a couple weeks.
Well, after approval, yes.
Yes, after
Within
approval, after
a couple
approval.
of weeks after approval.
Yeah, that's very useful information. I appreciate you making it available to those who are curious.
Very good.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Okay. And thanks a lot for all the work on this. This has been, since I've been on council, many years. We've been working on this. And finally, it's, even though the amendment's this way. So I'll have to ask Mr. Purig. I'm ready to make a motion. So there's several steps here. Do you want me to make a motion all 8 of them, or
No,
how would you like to?
I've got another
I
idea.
don't like that idea, but
I'm sure you do. Okay, so the first 3 steps are acknowledging receipt of the resolution, discussing it, and discussing the ordinance. So those, I believe, have been accomplished already. So we can start with step 4, which I'm going to suggest you just make that recommendation number 4, make that motion now and vote on that. And then we're going to go from there.
Okay. Go ahead and make the motion for motion finding the adoption of the proposed resolution and ordinance and statutory exempt from a proposed, I'm sorry, motion finding the adoption of the proposed resolution and ordinance and statutory exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15265.
second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote on that.
Thank you. And that second was Mayor Smith, right? Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Walking Stick? Councilmember Garfield?
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
Councilmember Rao?
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri? Motion carries 7-0.
So my next recommendation is he asked me to read the title of the resolution that's attached to the staff report. So if somebody wants to ask me to do that, I'll be glad to comply.
Yeah, can you do that?
I can do that. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Pacific Grove pursuant to Pacific Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 23.84 to amend the local coastal program, including the text, policies, and figures of the land use plan, LUP sections 1.10, 2.11, 2.12, and 2.14, and text of the implementation plan, Pacific Grove Municipal Code, Chapter 23.90, Section 23.90, 140B. So the next step would be a motion to approve the resolution as I just stated it.
Okay, do we make a motion on that one, on number 6?
Well, just to say, motion to approve the resolution read by the city attorney.
Motion to approve the resolution by the city attorney.
Second.
Go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Thank you. That was moved by Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Yes.
Second by Walking Stick.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Yes.
Councilmember Walking Stick?
Yes.
Councilmember Garfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Rao?
Aye.
Councilmember Paturi? Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
And Mayor Smith. Motion carries 7-0.
Next step would be to ask me to read the title of the ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Barrick, will you read the title of the ordinance?
Certainly will. This is an ordinance of the city of Pacific Grove, amending the text of section 23.90140 of the Pacific Grove Municipal Code, part of the implementation plan of the city's local coastal program. And now that I've read the title, you can combine the remaining actions by just making a motion to approve recommendations 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, I think we did 6 already, did we?
I think there was an additional.
Oh, okay, 6, okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve 6, 7, and 8.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
Councilmember Spaduri? Rao?
Aye.
Walking Stick? Garfield?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
I think that completes the motions. That was a great slew of motions. I appreciate, thank you, staff.
Council.
Appreciate it. Great job. And thanks for staying on top of this LCP. It's been going on for a long time. I can attest to that. Been around for about, yeah, as long as I can remember. Okay. Let's go to the next item. I'm looking here. Where is it? 11B. 11B. This is the HID program, and I will recognize Lori Friday, our finance manager here. It's okay. The mic, it might not be on. There we go. And just, no, there you
Okay.
go.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, council members, members of the public. This public hearing is being held for the Hospitality Improvement District Program for fiscal year 25-26, later referred to as the HID. I'd like to announce that there has been no majority written protest for the annual district assessment, and no changes to the HID boundaries are recommended. Through the adoption of the resolution tonight, it is recommended that council approves the Chamber of Commerce's annual report, levy an annual assessment, approve the program for the upcoming fiscal year, which includes an annual expense budget of $239,000, appoint the HID Accessory Board, and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with the Pacific Grove Chamber of Commerce to administer the HID budget. All documents mentioned are published in this council meeting packet. And as stated in resolutions 07-044, all specific points of compliance have been met. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and take it out to the public for the HID program for FY 25-26. Anyone in chambers wishing to comment on the HID program? And anyone online wishing to comment on the HID program?
No hands online, Mayor.
Okay. Give it a second here. Okay. Well, we'll bring it back to the council for action. We'll close public comment on item 11B. And this is one of our customary items that we support our hospitality improvement district. And so at this point, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move with action.
Thank you, Councilmember Baduri with the motion. Second by Emilio. A discussion on the motion. Anybody? Going once, going twice? Okay, no. Yeah, okay, Councilmember Garfield.
We're a town that depends on tourism, and these are the folks that make that happen. So the Hospitality Improvement District are the hotels and inns that house our visitors. And if they are successful, we are successful. And I think it's a real important partnership, and I want to commend them for the work that they do and hope that we keep a productive partnership going forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion, so I'll ask for a roll call vote. Actually, I'll take a voice vote. I'll take a voice vote on this. I don't think there's not much dissent. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Okay, moving right along to item 11C, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, 11C. Lori's still here. Ms. Friday's still here. And this would be the Downtown Business Improvement District, the BID program for fiscal year 25-26. Ms. Friday.
Thank you, Mayor. This public hearing is being held tonight for the Downtown Business Improvement District, the BID program for fiscal year 25-26. There has been no majority written protest to the proposed annual district assessment, and no changes in the BID boundaries are recommended. As stated in resolution number 07-042, all specific points of compliance have been met. Through the adoption of this through the adoption of this resolution tonight, it's recommended that the City Council approve the Chamber of Commerce's annual report, levy the annual assessment, approve the program for fiscal year 25-26, which is the expense budget of $31,000, appoint the BID advisory board, and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with the Pacific Grove Chamber of Commerce to administer the BID budget. All above mentioned documents are published in this council packet, and this concludes my report.
Thank you so much. So we'll take it out to the public. Anyone in chambers wishing to comment on the bid program for 25-26? Anyone online wishing to, any public comment on this? Okay, well, we have one hand on the bid online.
Sorry, Christy Thomas?
Hi, I really wasn't that planned, but when I hear both of those last two subjects, I still can't figure out why the chamber, with all the money they make, can't partner with the city, with the Sillamar, and with the Hotel Restaurant Association to get that trolley coming into PG, like everybody else in Monterey does, like all those tourist buses stopping on David Avenue and hundreds weekly get out and no trolley coming to PG. So that's all I wanted to say. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online?
No further hands, Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Close public comment on item 11C. I'll recognize Councilmember Dirty.
Yes, thank you. I'm in support of this, obviously, but I just wanted to thank all that is happening in town with respect to the PG Chamber of Commerce and the BID. The only reason I wanted to make a comment was I'm glad that there's an ice cream shop in town. That is number one for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Councilmember McDonald.
Thanks very much. Just following up on the public comment, is the trolley something that the BID could potentially and HID could potentially opt to do? And I'm only saying that because it might be something that we want to suggest to the chamber to see if it's something that would be worth doing. I know it's something we've been talking about doing so that we do have more options for people to become carless, which is great for our climate action goals. And so I appreciate the comment and just wanted to kind of have council at least have a comment about thinking that might be a good idea for us to at least encourage pursuing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Yes, comment. I represent MST on the MST board, and this was brought up a couple of years, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, to put a trolley in PG is $250,000 from the city's budget to put it in there. And that's straight from the CEO of MST. So it's very expensive to do that. And at this time, I'm ready to make a motion on this.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm recommending the motion of
just you can move the recommendation.
Okay, I'll move the recommendation.
Okay.
A second.
Did you get your comment?
Yeah.
Okay. And any further discussion? Okay. We'll take a voice vote on this. The BID. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you very much again to our businesses and restaurants, and we appreciate you very much. And thank you to the chamber for continuing to work on this and getting it done every year, and putting on all the events and letting us know and getting us out to our events when we get too busy and inundated with emails. So we appreciate it. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to 11D. This is the master fee schedule for FY 25-26. And we're going to stick with Miss Frady over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff has prepared the master fee schedule for your review as required by Chapter 6.02 of the Municipal Code. The City Council adopted fees, charges, and cost recovery policy 400-4 serves as a guide for the council, establish the fees and services, fines, and other charges for services to help ensure consistency in fee rationale. The recommendation in this report is to adjust the current fee schedule where applicable by 2.4%. The 2.4% increase is drawn from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics publication using the Consumer Price Index, CIP, for San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose for the period ending December 31st of 2024. Looking at the master fee document, a few key points. The land and property sales or rentals are not limited to cost recovery principles associated with fees, as they are sold or leased at market rates. State and government agency fees we charge are exempt from the annual increase, so they've stayed the same. The fire department fees are aligned with the city of Monterey's fee schedule. Changes other than those receiving the 2.4 increase are highlighted in the far right column in red. And staff anticipates the recommended fee additions and changes to correspond with the cost of providing services for the new fiscal year. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We will take it out to the public. Anyone in chambers wishing to comment on the fee schedule? I think we have one, at least one taker. Okay. Take her first.
Thank you. You know, I've been involved with trees since 2009, and I'm not going to harp on that other than $1,100 plus the cost of trees is a little high in my opinion. But since Darlene Madison was here recently and talked about the memorial bench maintenance fee, I'm going to point out a little bit to you. I think that it is beyond a cost of recovery. There are 184 benches. Of those, 9 benches are maintained by the city. So let's figure out 175 benches. At the rate that you're proposing, $777 for 5 years of service, figures about $155 a year, which comes to over $27,000 that goes into the general fund. So that is just with the possibility that there might need to be maintenance for the benches. And so I think that that needs to come down. I think the level is quite high there. Just take into consideration. I know you can't answer that. And I would, back to the trees, I would kind of like to see a breakdown to justify the $1,100. I know you can't do that now, but I will be in touch with someone. Thank you.
Thank you. Trees and benches noted. Okay, go online. Anyone online wishing to comment on the master fee schedule for 25-26?
Thank you, Mayor. Carmelita Garcia.
Thank you so much. On page 27, the garage sale permit processing fee of $15. I would encourage you just to eliminate that. I think it's somewhat silly, being that no one's making millions of dollars off of their garage sales. And I think it actually costs the city more staff time to process this fee. So I would ask that it just be eliminated. Thank you.
No further hands online, Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Close public comment on item 11D, master fee schedule. So we had 3 notes made, which were interesting. The benches, obviously that's come up before. Garage sale permitting, I've never even heard of that one. And then trees, so maybe that can be discussion items. Councilmember Garfield.
Yeah, those comments hit a couple of mine as well. I would like for us to have a better understanding of what's involved in memorial bench maintenance. That may be a public works issue, but it would be, whether it's today or some other time, it would be nice to know a little bit more. We've heard about it and I'd like for us to be better informed. The second one's on tree trimming. What are we going to do if, when the fire department makes its inspections, people are required to trim a tree? How's that going to figure into permitting processes when it's a legal requirement to do so? So that's something I'd like to know a little bit more about. I do see that in our errata on page 16, that the item that was previously parklets is now parklets/sidewalk dining. So that takes it up to combine with our current ordinances. I also wanted to talk about, I think that we need to do some additional work, not tonight, but on overnight parking of oversized vehicles, house cars on private property and streets, tour bus parking, and the giant RVs as we get into RV vacation season, how we're going to address that. So I just, first stab at this, I think we need to be working on that particular issue. I also want to point out that on tour bus parking, it came to my attention because some of the areas where the tour buses park are some of the hotspot areas where we get a lot of cigarette butt litter. These are not folks that we have any way of communicating with necessarily. So the chamber has reached out to the Hospitality Improvement District to find out if any of our hotels have a connection with tour bus companies. Do they stay at our hotels? Do they have an agreement with any of our hotels so that we could communicate with them? And the answer is no. They come through Pacific Grove, they stop, apparently they litter, and they're not doing any business here. So I want to bring that back as well. I don't think it's a fee structure issue, but these are things that come up when we look at the fee structure. Thank you. That covers my list.
Okay, and I would just, one comment I'll make is, so obviously this touches every single aspect of the city government, so we're not gonna be able to solve all the world's problems tonight or the city's problems tonight, but I do think that you highlighted the parking issue, so that to me is a separate item that we can work on, and that will, any changes we make there will adjust, will change
It'll
the
come-
fee schedule.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that's good to highlight, and if you have any specific fees in an area that you're interested in, so I certainly could make suggestions on the exact fee tonight, and I'll recognize Councilmember Rao.
Thank you, Your Honor. On page 3, the 30% discount for water entitlement rights expires on 6/30. I think, we have the hope that in November with Monterey One coming online with more water, that should alleviate the situation. My question is anyone taking advantage of it currently? And if there still are people that are looking for water entitlement rights, maybe we should push that to December 31st, 2025.
Yeah, can I ask, Mr. Mogensen, can you opine on that? I am still signing on a weekly basis. I'm signing water entitlement packages. So I just want to, let's get the staff's take on this because it is important. And I don't necessarily want to sunset that discount if we don't have the water in hand.
There are discussions at the regional water control district about them providing additional water allocations to cities, perhaps as early as the end of this year. They have processes to go through, things to get approved still. Well, we still have our water entitlement allocations. So we are still in a position that we can sell those today. People have been advised, I guess, at times that if you wait, you perhaps won't have to pay for it. We're kind of thinking that that's a bit of an unknown for people. If you have a project in the pipeline, you could pay for ours at this rate, 30% reduced rate today, and go forward with your project, or you can wait and see how this goes. And the way water has been litigated and everything on this peninsula for 100 years, I'm not sure it will be the end of this year. Does that answer the question? So the 30% discount, I think, has been a good tool for people to try and incentivize them, because it's not just somebody who wants to say add a toilet, but sometimes you're doing a bigger project to your house, a bigger renovation, and that could be something that holds them back and makes them want to go forward with their project.
And according to this, it is sunsetting this fiscal year?
One thing I wanted to mention, so.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Marsh.
Sorry, was to expire on June 30th of this year, 2025. But that's actually one of the changes we made on this was to extend it another year to June 30th, 2026. So
that takes us through the next year's fee schedule.
Exactly.
Very good.
The council has been doing that every year, I think, for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. I want that. That's great.
I also agree with Council Member Garfield that we do need to look at mitigating the amount of people that are camping on our shores. They're, it's in addition to being unsightly, it's taking away TOT tax from our hotels. And I would say that we need to, not only when we look at it and come up with a guideline, then we need to make the fees commensurate with, an average night hotel room plus the TOT tax is the first night of fees.
Thank you. No, that's a good point. Anyone speak to the garage sale thing? Just to spend a second on a $15 fee?
I'm not sure who processes that permit or how often that permit comes through. I'd imagine most people do it without a permit.
I would think.
Police department?
We process quite a few garage sale permits. Staff time at the front counter to look over the form. We fax it to the police department. The police department logs it, keeps track of them in case we get a citizen's complaint that their neighbor's having a garage sale. Do they have a permit? So there's a process, and $15 covers staff time.
Okay, it's a monitoring thing.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much. And then what was the point
They're
about?
allowed to have them 4 times a year. And the crux of the ordinance when it came into effect was to eliminate small businesses doing them every weekend.
Okay. What was the point about the trees? If did anyone pick up on? What was the point in the fee schedule?
I think that was two things, the memorial benches and the trees.
Yeah, I'm getting to the benches, but what about the trees?
I think his suggestion was just the price was too high for the permit.
Where is that fee? I can't find it. Mine doesn't have numbers.
28 of the fee schedule.
Yeah, some of the packets didn't have numbers this time, so I'm trying to locate that. Right here.
Yeah, this section called tree fees, basically, and yeah,
Okay, memorial tree fee.
towards the back.
Okay, got it. Okay, so can, Mr. Mogensen, can you speak to the reasoning for the fee there?
But, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I think that any fee that is located on this schedule, the way it was established was through a bigger study by taking the city's budget and the cost that it is to provide these programs and dividing that out amongst the overhead and everything else that goes into that. So all these fees were established with a science, if you will. We also have a policy that establishes that, like, certain departments, we only look for a certain cost recovery. For example, recreation's 30%. Public works for this particular one, it could be 100%. So all of our fees fit within those two different criteria. One is they've been studied, so there's a science behind how much these fees are assessed at. And the other part is that they fit within a policy. It is within the council's purview to deviate from that, and to do something different. However, there's kind of these are the true costs to the city. So if we were to reduce one fee, say by 50%, and that fee the target is 100%, that means you're subsidizing 50% of that fee. That's kind of the way that works.
Understood. Okay, we've kind of had some discussion. Anyone prepared to make a motion on the fee schedule? Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem
I
Amelia.
just have one quick question. On the trees, the fire department has been going around letting people know they're in a district that's in high fire danger. So those people that are conscious about trimming trees, now they're going to have to pull a permit to trim the tree for the fire department, or how's that work? Do you know, Mr. Morgan?
Councilmember Emilio, what I heard suggested is perhaps that's something that comes back in the future. Under the circumstance where you're given a notice by the fire department, perhaps there's a fee waiver that goes along with that or something. That would be a council further action down the line.
I see. Okay. So, okay. I understand.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the fee schedule. If so motion would.
I'll go ahead and make the fee motion on the schedule. We do this every year, and I understand the percentage going up. So other than the ones that were pulled or not pulled, but questions, maybe we could have the staff just explore that. And that's my motion.
Okay, so motion recommendation 1. Do I have a second?
Second.
There you go. Second by McDonald. Discussion?
The city to look at.
No, this is just one. This is item 1. Approve the schedule as stated.
Then if someone got.
I think staff has direction and they know the areas that we kind of are interested in. So I'll take no further discussion. We'll take a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody, for the discussion. And the staff will kick around those items that were raised. And if there's any room we can let up on, we will try to lower the fees. That's what we also have to keep in mind, our costs and what it's costing us to run the city. Item 12A. This is the 2-year budget and review of investment and financial policies. This is receive the report item. So we're going to get some high level financial information and budgeting information to prepare us for the budget season in June. So without introduction, I'm going to let Mr. Marsh take over.
Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. I'm going to have the city manager and just do a brief introduction and I'll go right into it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. And because we're moving along pretty well, I want to step back 1 second.
Absolutely.
And that's the council approved an item earlier tonight that was actually a lot more momentous, I think, than was given to it. And that was the LCP amendment. Those things take 2-3 years to process. And we were lucky that we had a grant this time. There was a huge underhaul in Joe Sedor. Obviously, if we didn't have him, there's continuity through that. We probably wouldn't have sailed through tonight. So that's been before the council many times. And those just to say that was a big project, I think, to wrap up, even though it feels like a small amendment. Those are big efforts. So this item, though, transitioning tonight, is going to be a preview of our general fund. And the goal tonight really is to demonstrate, some of the budget numbers to you, give you some time to ask questions, to understand a little bit better and provide some feedback if you'd like to see some changes. Ultimately, this will come back on June 5th in more of a finalized form. So this year we have seen some changes to our revenues as we're not alone. So have other cities in our area. So it's a bit disappointing. It's not as bad as it could be, and it is for other cities, but has caused us to, look at it a little bit closer. So our tough budget team here has been working hard to get it as close as possible as we could to present you the best position we could. And so Mr. Marsh is going to walk you through those numbers. He's also going to talk, I'm not going to steal his thunder about the whole presentation, but he's also going to talk a little bit about pensions and then some new budget policies that he's developed to make us more efficient going forward. So with that, I'll turn it back over to him.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And before I start too, I want to recognize that Jessica, she's my assistant finance director. She and Nick, our staff, have done a crack job in putting this together. So I just want to kind of thank them ahead of time. So, and with that, all right. What am I? Oh, there it goes. Okay. So yeah, we're going to focus in basically several different areas tonight in the presentation. So first of all, we'll kind of talk a little bit about the departmental goals and how they relate to the recent areas of focus, that were passed by the council previously. Talk about the recent economy, especially a little bit on tariffs and how that potentially might affect us. Like our city manager was saying, basically the focus tonight is the general fund. We'll be bringing back in early June about all funds, but because the general fund is by far the biggest portion of our general fund, but we thought it'd be a good focus start with tonight. Definitely, there's been a lot of interest about pensions, and our obligations and kind of what we're looking to do in the future to start to continue to address that. To give you the future timeline on the budget and kind of related reports. Kind of what we've done recently with our website to kind of enhance our financial transparency. And then the second part of the presentation is basically looking at our financial investment policies with several proposed changes on those as well too. So basically, we're going to talk about first of all, the 4 different areas of focus. The first one relates to financial sustainability. A lot of this relates to admin services and kind of what we do in working with all the different departments at the city. So we will continue to kind of issue, our focus is issuing high quality reporting, such as our annual audit report and our budget report, issuing timely, financials for the council, including on investments, interim financials, and working with Public Works on CIP. Our accounting system. So our current accounting system we've had since 2002, and it badly needs to be replaced. So we're going to be looking over the next year and a half, and coming back to council at a later time with some recommendations regarding that. And then our current MOUs right now, they go through June of 2026. So city manager's department, I imagine, will be helping out as well to admin services and working with the different bargaining units on coming up with some new MOUs. The next area is infrastructure. And obviously, we're continuing to focus on that. Cybersecurity, that's always an ongoing concern for us. We've put in some extra monies in the budget to continue to focus, and enhance our cybersecurity. Fire, we're looking at a couple different things, working with Monterey, City of Monterey on this. They are basically doing an alerting system for all of their different fire stations. So we'll be doing it at our station and looking to place our fire engine in service. I think the most current announcement was like February of 2026, if I remember right on that. Security cameras. I mean, we've unfortunately had a little recent break-in at the library. So we're looking to some potential areas where we can install some security cameras and just, enhance security here. And the sewer master plan, looking to update that. We basically, our last master plan was about 10 years ago that we adopted. So we'll be looking to adopt another 10-year master plan as well too. The next area is the environmental stewardship. And some of the areas we're going to be focusing on related to that relate to crime prevention, finalizing our climate action plan. Basically, Public Works has already done 5 different facility assessments, and we will be incorporating all of those into our 5-year CIP plan, which we'll be bringing to the council in the future as well too. The other areas, we talked about this earlier, fire risk reduction, that's always an issue, here in the city, and just looking to increase our traffic safety as well too, and measures that we do to address that. The last area is community development as far as areas of focus. So City Manager's Department will be looking at the business license process to see if there's ways we can streamline that. Outreach, we'll be looking to do a comprehensive plan on that. Looking to certify the housing element here for our city. Looking to streamline the way we do reviews and planning. And for recreation, a couple different things. Looking to maximize our program participation and expand some of our programs as well too. So national economy. Right now, currently, it's in an okay shape. Kind of these stats kind of help to show that. But we definitely have some concerns going forward regarding tariffs and just the recent immigration policies that have been adopted by the federal government. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. The tariffs, unfortunately, they are at their highest levels since the 1930s. China, it was at an incredibly high level. They've temporarily brought those down, but it's only a certain period. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with that. The economic index was down for the 5th straight month. And retailers are looking to potentially increase prices as well too because of the tariffs. And sales have been impacted as well too. The sales, and this is a national economy, but it was up 0.1% for April. So it's really slowed down a lot. So it's something that we've kind of taken into fact in doing, like Matt was saying, and looking to do the forecast for the next couple of years. So looking overall at the general fund, we still think we're going to be able to meet our reserve targets for the next 2 years, but we are looking that we're facing deficits for both of those years in essence. And I'll talk a little bit more about the reasons for that. And this slide kind of goes into it a little bit. So as Matt was saying earlier, several of revenues, they're basically either stagnant or going up very little for the next couple of years. We've incorporated the funding for a couple of new positions that council previously adopted with the Forester, Deputy City Manager and City Engineer. All the cities are facing this, but unfortunately our unfunded actuarial pension liability contributions have gone up for the next couple of years. We've factored in the MOU cost for next year. And obviously we don't have an agreed upon MOU for the second year, but we're assuming a similar level of cost for the second year of the budget, I should say. We've had just experienced some additional overtime in police, so we've factored that into the cost. With the expansion in the rec programs, that's resulted in additional monies having to be set aside for part-time salaries and our contract instructors. So those are factored in. And then the last thing is, and this is again a statewide issue, but unfortunately our insurance premiums have gone up significantly. The liability portion of our insurance has gone up about 30% over last year, so very significant. So just a kind of brief picture of our revenues. So for us, really, tax revenues, that is our main focus here at the city. We get about 1/3 of our revenues from property taxes, and that's really our one stable base that continues to grow at a pretty stable level. As you can see, we do have other types of revenues, including, obviously the hotel tax, sales tax, and our other taxes as well too. And this distribution is the same for this, looking to be the same for the second year of the budget as well too. So what we're going to do just briefly is talk about each one of the major tax revenues. So our property tax revenues, that's the one area where we do feel pretty confident that we'll have some level of growth in that for the next couple of years. I mean, I think most council members know, Prop 13 governs in a lot. So we anticipate continuing to get about a 2% increase on that, as well as from additional permits and sales of property. So we're anticipating about a 4% increase, over the next couple of years, in that area. And you can see that's kind of consistent. It's a little bit lower than what we've had in the past, but pretty consistent with what we've had recently. Some of our other areas, however, are a lot more variable. TOT is a really good example. Unfortunately, that has been down this next year, and we're looking to basically keep it flat. And we're hoping actually it just stays flat. Unfortunately, we had some news in that basically business-related travel is down 9% for April in the US. So it's something we're going to just have to continue to watch as well too. We probably are a little bit less affected by international travel, but there is spillover that can, potentially comes into PG as well too. And then in the second year, we're hoping it picks back up a little to just a cost of living 3% increase. Sales tax. So we work with our third-party consultant, and we get regular reports on sales tax. In fact, we just had one yesterday on that. And unfortunately, pretty much all the cities in the area are experiencing negative growth or zero growth pretty much at this time. So based upon working with their forecast that they provide us, we expect no growth in that area for next year, and really a very minimal growth for the second year as well too. It's really important to note on sales tax that the state's economy has gone more from products to services. And I think most people realize services are not taxed. So unfortunately, that lowers the base for sales tax. And so therefore our revenues go down as a result. The other taxes is kind of a mix of several things that we have here, including the utility users tax, a franchise tax, and our business license tax. So this area is not expected to grow very much either. We've been negatively impacted, not just us, but the cities around us too, as more people get away from cable TV and into streaming. That streaming is not taxed basically, you know, as a franchise tax. So that reduces our revenues in those areas. The other revenues too. So we did have a one-time bump this year. We talked earlier about the water entitlement fees. So we had a substantial payment related to the new hotel, you know, that came in for this year. Obviously, we're not expecting that, you know, going forward. In fact, we've taken a very conservative approach on this, assuming that Monterey One Water, I should say with the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, they would be starting to issue new water starting in 2026. So we're anticipating we will not be getting any revenues from this starting in 2026. To be on the conservative side, we may get some, but we want to take a really cautious approach on this as well too. Most of these other revenues just assume what the council just recently had passed, basically the cost of living adjustment for those fees, you know, for the next couple of years. So one of the things that and Matt mentioned this earlier, when we do monitor fee recovery, you know, and there's a couple of different areas that we collect a significant amount of fees, both for community development and for recreation, basically. So one of the things we wanted to point out to the council, community development's done, we've done a great job, we thought, in recovery. We're anticipating actually continuing good recovery rate, about 90% over the next couple of years. But recreation is something we want to just kind of take a focus on going forward in the future, because the recovery level is now below the 30%. In fact, we're forecasting it to be at about between 21 and 22% for the next couple of years. So one of the things recreation staff, they're going to take a look at basically their programs to see kind of what we're getting the most participation in, and may come back in the future with some proposed changes for council, you know, for that. So just some people like to know kind of the breakdown of expenditures. For us, basically, it's about 40% that's salaries and benefits, about 35% that are supplies and services, and the other part is basically capital, transfer, support for other funds, and debt service. One of the things we've done this year is broken out basically the our pension obligation bonds and the UAL, the unfunded actuarial liability, into separate components, just to make it easier and to break it out from the operating expenses, because it's something that departments can't control, and we have to pay those costs regardless. It's a fixed cost to us. So that's part of basically, you'll see in another slide, basically a non-departmental. That's part of the non-departmental that we have. So for us, the biggest portion of expenses are police. That's not a surprise. The next areas include public works. Now, public works is a little bit different in the fact that they have several different funding sources for their operations. So it includes general fund, obviously. They are able to fund a lot of their stuff from our street activities, some from cemetery, and some from the sewer as well too. Then the other larger ones include fire, community development, and recreation. So kind of some of the areas, you know, reasons for increases or changes basically. We've had some one-time expenses in a couple of different areas, including community development and the city attorney's office. They're not expected to continue going forward. Some of the impacts of the personnel cost of living adjustments and step increases. We've had some new staffing in police, so those costs have kind of gone up a bit for next year compared to this year. Fires had a normal cost of living adjustment with our county contract, basically. And then I mentioned this earlier with cybersecurity. We've invested some additional monies for cybersecurity, so information services is going up a bit. And then lastly, again, recreation, because of the increase in programs, they're expected to go up with their part-time salaries and contract instructors. So basically a similar trend for the second year. And when we do a 2-year budget like this, we'll obviously next year bring an update, for the second year to this, but it kind of gives you a better longer term picture, of the city. And what we'll do in June is we'll update the 5-year forecast for the city, on the 5-year fund as well too. So pretty similar reasons for those. One thing I did want to mention was this relates to the water entitlement fees. Because in essence, we're not going to be collecting, we don't anticipate collecting anything of those revenues, starting in 2026. The transfers that we typically would take some of those and transfer it to the local water project fund, we won't have to do that. So the transfers go down as a result, because of that. So pensions, and we've talked a bit about this before with council. Obviously we have a significant obligation, but really it's, when you compare us to other cities, they also have very significant obligations as well too. One of the things I wanted to explain for council is we really have 3 different components of our obligation. Basically, we have what's called, and you see this when you get our audit report each year, it's called the net pension liability. That's basically the actuarial amount determined by PERS. We, a number of years ago, issued what's called pension obligation bonds to kind of pay down a portion of that liability. So we are making annual debt service payments on that. The good news on that is the last payment on that will be in fiscal year 28-29. So that'll free up about 1.6 million, a year, once we stop paying those. And then the last part just relates to normal costs for our current employees. That ranges between about 1 million to 1.2 million a year. So really the large portion of the costs relate to basically prior service activity of prior employees. And one of the things I just kind of want to remind council as well too, as we look forward in the future, there are ways to potentially approach this kind of like, a housing loan where you can take your loan from like a 30-year to a 15-year loan. They have ways that you can reduce the time on your loan. It obviously increases your payment, but it can result in some significant interest savings, should we look to do this in the future. One of the things I did want to kind of mention for everybody is that, we've already taken some steps and we're looking to do some additional steps to help address, the pension liability going forward in the future. So the first thing, I think this is by far one of the biggest things right here as far as what the employees are paying right now. They are paying the entire amount of their required of their employee contribution. They're also paying a portion of the employer's payment as well too. So the combination for the miscellaneous and classic safety employees, they're paying 12%, which is the highest amount of any of our comparable cities right now. And those employees that are on PEPRA, they actually pay 1/2 of the total cost of the normal cost in essence. And if you look on PEPRA, especially for miscellaneous employees, it's pretty comparable to Social Security right now. They're paying about 7.75%, which is very comparable to Social Security. So the second thing, we mentioned this to council earlier, is starting with next fiscal year, we will be paying the entire amount of the unfunded actual liability annual payment in July, which will save us about 3% for the year. The third thing, like we mentioned with council, is we'll be bringing back to council a proposal to enter in trust funds with CalPERS and PARS. Those are ways to invest monies for a longer period of time, but potentially have higher rates of return than our normal investment pool. And then the other thing that council can consider going forward in the future is, like I mentioned, once those pension obligation bond payments are done, we may want to take a look at those and start to invest those monies annually into the trust fund to help offset our liability. So there definitely are steps we're doing and more that we want to do in the future to help bring down that liability. And then this is just a reminder of kind of, we've really tried to strive to really make our website, the financial section of our website, is user-friendly and informative if possible. So this is just an example, one of the screens we have that just kind of nicely summarizes for the public, kind of what our budget is in the different categories. And so just to remind council of the timeline, so we'll be bringing to council basically the all funds presentation of the budget in early June, with the second reading and adoption of the ordinance in the second meeting in June. The budget needs to be enacted by, be in place by July 1st of each year. We'll bring the preliminary fourth quarter financials in August. We'll bring to council the annual audit report for 24-25 in January, the mid-year report and a revised 5-year forecast in February. What our great staff here, Lori, did today, but the annual fee update in May, and then obviously the budget update for 26-27 in May and June. And that's a typo. That should say May and June of, those should say 26, not 27. So, and before I go into the investment and financial policies, first of all, I don't know if city manager want to add any comments. And then second, I just want to open up the council too for any questions or comments you had. So
We'll hit you with questions later. We'll just keep rolling.
Okay.
Get the information in, let the public comment and all that. But Mr. Mogensen, do you have any comments?
I think we're moving along well, so I won't slow.
Okay. Yeah, we won't stop the train. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mark.
great, thank you. So the second part of the presentation relates to basically the financial investment policy that the city has. We have two separate ones on those. So I've had a chance to really take a look at those and kind of look at comparable other agencies and see what would make the most sense for the city. The council really gave us some great feedback. I think I already forgot the May, it was either April or May, but some great feedback from that meeting from there. And I've tried to incorporate that into here as well too. The first page I think is really by far the most significant page, for council. We've really tried to incorporate, your guys' feedback and, what your thoughts were. So I want to go through these, line by line. The revenue and expense budgets right now in our policy, we have a 1% contingency that we can enact. I actually would propose to take that to 2%. We do it a little bit differently here. The way we do it is when we budget at 100% staffing. But as you know, we always have vacancies during the year. So that's kind of the way we kind of address our contingencies by budgeting at that full staffing level. So, but a 2% contingency either way provides us a little bit of cushion, during the year as we have adjustments. So the reserves itself, basically, I want to kind of look at that as a whole for the general fund. So the idea is we would propose taking it down from 35% to 25% as an operating reserve for that. And if you remember the comparison with other cities, they were at about the same level. So it brings it pretty similar to that. And then what we would do is take some of those reserves and look to set up two new reserves, a capital reserve and a pension reserve. And the idea is that we'd have a minimum of $500,000 in each one. It also would provide us some funding, as I mentioned before, for the new accounting system as well too, which is just badly in need of replacement. So a golf fund, we're looking to kind of keep the same, no change on that. Sewer fund, what I'd like to do is change it to where the reserves are have enough in there to fund 2 years worth of capital improvements. Right now, the current policy is 500,000. I think it's just good for us to continue to look on a long-term funding basis, especially when we look to update the master fee schedule for that. The insurance funds we did a comparison with our other cities as we presented to council before. They were at about 75% of their liabilities, and I proposed to change ours to a similar level on average. As we're doing right now, changing it from adopting just a single year budget to a 2-year budget. And then anytime we have a year-end surplus in the general fund, we'd first of all make sure that we've hit our reserve levels in the general fund and the insurance. Anything left over from that, we'd take, based upon council direction I got from before, 1/3 to basically a pension reserve, 1/3 addition to capital reserve, and 1/3 to a general fund reserve, which gives council some flexibility as they kind of desired, in meeting before. So a lot of these are kind of a lot of miscellaneous things, but I think they're valuable changes to the policy. Our capital improvement definition right now is only $2,500. It's really low. Most of the other cities have a significantly higher level of what they consider a capital improvement. And talking with Public Works and our city manager, we recommend to bring that up to about 50,000. With basically incremental increases as inflation changes, basically. So the capital outlay would still leave it at 5,000, but again, with incremental increases, so we don't have to come back to council, every couple of years. We just kind of keep it useful. The asset useful lives, not really major changes on here. The one I did want to change though was buildings. We had a standard of the useful life for buildings being 100 years. Well, we have buildings that don't last 100 years. So I've made it more range on that between 20 to 100 years. And then the basis of budgeting, this is really just more for accounting wise, but there are some things we don't budget for. For example, we don't budget for depreciation, but we do budget for like debt service, which is not technically considered an expense. So I wanted to just kind of clarify that. This is more for our GFOA awards program to make sure we're in compliance with good policies. Carryover encumbrances, again, this just kind of makes it, we feel, easier for council and staff. This particularly relates to capital projects. Capital projects, as you know, can go on for multi-years. So the idea is a lot of times you'll encumber the monies up front, but the expenditures will go on for more than 1 year. This allows us, as long as the funding is available in the funds, to just continue to roll over the encumbrances and the budgets to the following year. Required reporting, as you know, we've really worked between the city manager and myself with council to kind of redefine, what we think are valuable quarterly reports. So this kind of reflects that. So investments, basically, we're already in compliance with the state law, but what we try to do too is I belong to several different organizations such as the CMTA, which is the California Municipal Treasury Association. There's a national one. They have also even some other standards as well too. So we were kind of just redefining this when we look at our investment policy and reporting to make sure we're in compliance with those as well too. There's a clause in the investment policy about giving preference to local firms. There's not really in local firms on investments. I mean, if you look at it right now, we bank with B of A. We bank with a investment broker that's out of the area. There's unfortunately not really local investment options. So we're recommending to take that out of the policy. Permitted investments. One of the things I wanted to do on this was give us a little bit more flexibility. So I'm proposing to add a couple of different types of investments. One is called camp and class. They're very similar to LAIF. They have same day liquidity, but they have a little shorter maturity period, which at this time is actually a bit better rate of return versus LAIF. So it would give us more flexibility in our investments. And should we issue debt in the future, the ability to actually issue in our own debt, because a lot of times you can get a better rate of return, on your own debt, basically. The investment policy adoption itself, to make it a little bit less rigid. The idea currently right now, we have to bring it back every 2 years, even if there's no changes. What I'm proposing to do is only bring it back if there's necessary changes, for council. Interest allocation, this is more, again, an accounting item, but it wasn't defined in our policy. And I thought it's just important to know kind of how we distribute interest across our funds. Quarterly investment reports, I wanted to just reflect this to actually what we're doing with our investment reports right now and what you've been seeing. And hopefully council's been finding that very useful in the information we provide in those reports. Debt management. So there was a while back as Senate Bill 1029, which required cities to basically adopt a debt policy. We have some components in our basically financial policy, but not all the required components. So what I have in here is proposed changes for tonight, kind of addresses all of their requirements in there. One of the things is we don't currently have in our policy kind of types of debt issues that we're authorized to issue. So I kind of listed some standard ones that I thought would be a good addition to our policy. And then refunding of our debt. Typically, a lot of times, when you work with financial advisors, they want to know what's your minimum level as far as before it's feasible for you to refund a debt. So a standard is basically anytime when you refund a debt, you typically don't want to have savings that are less than what's called a net present value of less than 3% of the bond issue. So I thought that was a good policy to add on in here in case we don't really have any debt issues right now that we would need to refund, but if we did in the future, it's a good policy to kind of have in there. The debt service, I'm going to change that one a little bit. I'm going to add a little sentence on that to say the annual bonded debt service, because technically, like our pension obligation is an obligation. So I'm going to add that wording on that. And with that, I know that was a lot to give, but basically, the recommendation is for council to receive the report and provide us feedback regarding the proposed general fund budget and changes to the policies.
All right, that was a lot. But thank you for that. We're going to go to the public, but go ahead, Mr. Mogensen.
Yeah, I'll just kind of quickly thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll wrap it up with a couple of things. One is that you got a lot of information there, and you're going to have a little time, hopefully, to absorb it for the next time. But back to just the general fund portion of it. What we're presenting to you tonight is that it is the closest we've been able to get without making any deeper, more painful cuts at this point is about $1 million short in our operations for next year. When you add in the additional 900,000 of capital expenditures that are kind of a one-time stuff, it's about 1.9 million that we'd be looking to spend in our reserves. So we want to make sure that you understand that tonight. But we also, though, this is a situation where there's hope, of course, because we have new revenues in the future that we're all looking forward to. But it's also a little bit of looking at our budget and analyzing it. And Fred's done a great job at all this. Is that our expenses continue to go faster than our revenues in general without these big things like a new hotel. So these are reasons for us also to be, have caution and to look deeper. So to that end, this year, you'll see later tonight, we're going to talk about our community goals and work plan. We have our one area, focus area is fiscal responsibility. That includes 3 goals within it and 8 tasks. Some immediate things we want to start working on to work towards that. Also, we plan on reassessing positions when they become vacant over the next year, which is a good practice, but also in line with the organizational studies we've been having done to help us kind of guide and become more efficient in that way. We're also, as was mentioned, cost recovery assessments and probably looking at more business cases when we take on new services to really think through what the cost of those are. We also think we can reduce our liability exposures in work comp by putting more emphasis on those programs that are around, and then investigating new revenue streams as might be hanging out there that might be good options for us. So those are some of the actions we plan on taking as soon as July, getting moving on those things. But so again, we want to leave you with the big picture of what we're proposing to tonight, but also, help you to see that we do have a future that we need to think about our sustainability.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take it out to the public and see if there's anyone. Is there anyone in chambers wishing to comment on the budgetary items? Anyone online wishing to comment on the budgetary items that we just went over? Ms. Gianni.
Lisa Ciani.
Thank you. Excuse me. That was a lot, but I really want to express my appreciation to Mr. Marsh for his very clear presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No further hands, Mayor.
And I'll second that. It honestly is very refreshing to have a 2-year budget. I think we're seeing things in a nice way, and we're getting a lot more detail and getting down into the nitty gritty, which is what we need to be doing for the public and the community. And I think that we have our eyes open. We're looking at different things and doing a great job of doing it. So Mr. Marsh, thank you so much, and everyone in the finance staff, and thank you for that. That was really excellent and elucidated a lot of different concepts. And I'm kind of just, I've been talking about this for a while. I'll probably focus on those fiscal responsibility goals that we do have and bring back we do have a lot of money in reserves. And so, we're not a bank, and I've said it before, and we need to use that money to bring the city forward. There might be a period of time where we're going to have expenditures exceeding revenues, but then we got a hotel coming online, which we're not going to be able to put in our budget. We're not going to be able to book that money from the second part of 25-26. And so it looks like we're way behind, but we're going to be getting a lot of revenue there. So there are things coming in down the pike, and we have to remember that for years we saved money, and that's what you do in any financial situation. You save for the time when you need it, and now we might need it. So we saved for it, but we need to move some of these projects that we have on our work plan. We got to get them going. And for me, the idea of 500,000 or $1 million in a capital reserve, I think we should probably run it up to $1 million if we can, if it makes sense, if we can actually make the numbers pencil. And then the pension reserve should be $1 million, if we can make the numbers pencil. Maybe we can't, but I would want to try. I think 500 is probably not enough. We have a lot of the accounting system. Yeah, I know a little bit about that too. And we definitely need some upgrades in City Hall. There's a lot of different systems I've seen over the last 10 years that could use an upgrade, and it would really improve the efficiency of the staff, which would save us money over the long term. So I think a lot of what we're doing now is looking at the long term, which is, I think, really important. And that's great that we're doing it. And I'm very happy about that. So I will be quiet for now and let someone else talk. Go ahead, Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and actually those kind of mirror some of my thoughts on it. I really appreciate you bringing a more comprehensive picture for more clarity and transparency for the public and for council. So that's very much appreciated. And I appreciate that you're looking at how to set us up well for the future. I know as council, we've talked about this on different topics before, but, and you'd mentioned the pension obligation, the possibility of paying it off faster. So what I'd be really interested to see is recommendations in the future about what would be the best ways for us to tackle that. Is it paying it off early? Is it having a bond where we could invest and maybe pay things off earlier? So I noticed it's a big difference, $4 million savings for 15 years, I think it was, or 16 million savings for 10 years. So it'd be great to know, could we afford to do it in the 10 years? And maybe it's feasible or not.
I think there's a couple. Sorry. Yeah, I think there's a couple of different options basically, and we can obviously talk about this more with council in the future. There's really two ways I would see the easiest way for the city to address this. And Matt and I has talked about this in the past as well too, is when those pension obligation bonds, basically expire, that's basically $1.6 million. So if you saw, in fact, I probably should go back. Let me see if I can go back. And as you can see here, basically, and you talked about this earlier, Lori, as well, too, the amount that the payments go up, they're a little bit more than that, especially if you go to a 10-year. But, you realize some significant savings, but you can approach it two different ways. I mean, obviously, we could, have a new amortization schedule and basically pay it off early. The other way we could potentially do it, too, is what we talked about, is setting up those trust funds and putting in the trust funds, because that potentially might give us a little bit more flexibility, especially if there's a lot of swings with CalPERS over the next several years. Because when you put it in trust funds, you're not necessarily locked into those payments every single year, but you can use it to kind of smooth your payments. That's actually what the city of Marina is doing. They're using their trust fund right now to help smooth their payments. So you have a couple different ways of doing it, and we can definitely work with council in the future on seeing what way they would prefer.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And I really support anything where we can be forward thinking and look at where can we invest our reserves now? So preventing the deferred maintenance, which costs more to replace things later than to do the maintenance now. So anything that saves us money in the long term that we can invest in the short term, any recommendations for that are always appreciated. Thank you.
And I think one of the things, that's why Public Works have been working really hard on their facility assessments, because we want to kind of be able to give you guys a better picture in the future of what we see the needs for. So
yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
First of all, Mr. Marsh, thank you very much. And thank you to the people in the back that helped you put this together, the employees that helped you, the finance team. I see them in the back there. So anyway, I have appreciate the report. And it looks like we're going to be receiving more later. And just a couple of comments on the retired members and the classified members. I personally think that this is just my thoughts, is that they've worked their, off to receive those benefits. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, the retired employees. The other thing I had a comment on was just a couple of brief comments. I'm glad that you're doing the cybersecurity. That's very important in today's world. When I was at the Defense Language Institute, they really hit cybersecurity very, very, very hard. The also thing is, I had a comment that the reserves from other cities were like 25% reserves, and we're at 35%. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, for the operating reserves in the general fund, that was kind of on average. It varies from city to city, but on average, theirs is about 20, the average is about 25%.
25%, okay. And then on property taxes, so when we get our property taxes from the property tax bill from Santa Clara County, is that correct?
Yeah, in fact, I'm kind of showing this for the public as well too. I kind of glossed over this part, but I think this is really important to know. We only get about 16% of each dollar of property tax. I mean, the large majority of it goes to actually the schools. The schools get about 47% of it. Monterey County itself gets about 13%. And I think most of the council realizes this, but the number of years ago, the state had a budget crisis, and what they did is they implemented what was called ERAF, which basically siphoned off a bunch of the property taxes that they kind of used to plug holes in, in their budgets. And unfortunately, that's an ongoing thing that they're doing every single year. That is not going away. So that impacts our property taxes, and I mean everybody's, not just ours. So
I see. Okay. Because, you know, unfortunately, in Pacific Grove, the properties sell, and they're not decreasing in value. They keep going up,
Yeah, we have, especially here in Pacific Grove. I mean, you've got a fairly sizable base of people that have had their properties for a long time. And if you look at that, they probably have relatively low what's called Prop 13 assessed values.
Right.
That obviously impacts us as well too.
Sure. The other question I had was, so you mentioned the engineer and the forester, Mr. Morganson. You know what the status of those positions are right now?
I do. The forester, we just had interviews on Wednesday. Well, actually today's Wednesday, so yesterday, Tuesday.
Okay.
So they're working through kind of the final selection on that person. I would anticipate it'll take a month or so before they're here, minimum.
Okay.
The engineer position we put out for, I think, twice, and for about probably a month apiece. And we weren't able to gather any applications. So we're thinking about rethinking that position a bit. And then coming back with a different, not with a different allocation of money or anything from council, but a different way we package the position to hopefully attract other people to also be interested. So that was part of a larger sweep. And we mentioned in the presentation that there's a new deputy city manager position, and that is actually Joyce was filling a similar role in public works, so she moved over. So it's kind of a trade, if you will.
I see. Those were my general comments, and I have to admit, when I first came on in 2018, and they prepared, Tori Hanna gave us budget. I'm be honest with you, I had no clue. It came to me like you're going through the lighthouse tunnel, and the lights are going this way. But being on for a while, I understand it, and appreciate you and your staff back there for putting this budget together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rao?
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you to Mr. Marsh and the rest of the team. It was outstanding. I'd like to say thank you. You addressed the issues that we had talked about in the trust funds and how to set us up for success. And that's something that we talked about needing to do. So I appreciate you taking that on and taking that seriously. I want to ask you a question and then Mr. Mogensen, but if we go back to slide 25, you look at the number of retired employees that we have, 272, well, we have 89 active employees. And when you compare that to all the other cities around us, we are way over. Is there a way to get a report? And I don't want to be morbid, but is there a way to get a report so we can project, of that 272, who's in the 60 to 65, who's in the 65 to 70, 70 to 75 age group? I'm going to hope that they live to be 100 and everybody takes full advantage of their retirement. But it just seems like that number is really out of whack. And I know what was 2007, we had a large group retire. And
Councilman, from my understanding, the staff was probably at one point close to double what we have today, but that included a fire department, which we no longer have. So.
okay. So, it would be great to understand what that 272 burden is and when at some point it's going to start drawing down.
Yeah, we can talk to CalPERS. I don't know, to be honest. They give us a pretty detailed actuarial report that's actually where we kind of get most of this information from. I don't remember seeing anything in there. It might be a special request that we have. But one of the things is to just note for a council is this underfunded actual liability. So it basically is scheduled to be paid off by 2044, which is quite a ways out. And it's kind of what most of the cities are facing. And it's basically a it's a bell-shaped curve, basically. It's going to go up for a while, and then it's going to start to go down. And it kind of relates to what you're saying earlier, too. Basically, as the retirees, there's less and less of them, that, the liability goes down as a result.
Yeah. Okay.
But We can look in that and see what we can find.
All right, I just didn't want to be morbid, but I do think it's important for us to project out and understand what that obligation is. And then the other question I had was regarding the golf course renegotiation. I think there's some opportunity there. What's the timeline on that?
Well, Councilmember, we haven't necessarily started any kind of negotiation yet.
Okay.
We think there's interest in doing so, and that could play a big impact on for us in the future. So I would think that over the summer, we should be able to make some headway on that.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Garfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I want to say that I really appreciate everybody and really appreciate your approach on being very conservative and cautious about predictions for revenue and looking at expenses in a realistic manner. I think that's just the right way to do things. It's the way people should do their own finances, and I'm glad we're doing them for the city as well. I think that some of the things you've gotten us started on are really good. The idea of breaking down the reserve. And when you first said you wanted to go the reserves to 25% from 35%, because we worked so hard to get 35%. But then you look at all the other reserves that are entailing money for specific purposes. And I think it gives us a better picture of what we're saving for and what we're going to need to spend money on. So that gives us a better handle on this. I do have a recollection of CalPERS changing its, if you will, mortality predictions because people were living longer than they had anticipated. And so the pension obligations went up. But at least somebody's tracking it.
You're absolutely right. If I remember right, it's, well, the biggest thing was for public safety. Initially, they thought public safety would not live as long as miscellaneous employees. That's not turned out to be the case. They actually, and obviously because they have it's a richer benefit, that impacts the liability for us as well. Too. So,
and it's a nice way to say people are living longer. That's a good thing. I appreciate the policies that you're setting up. I think they're prudent. I think they're giving us better information, and I would support the goal that Mayor Smith has brought up of having slightly larger reserves for capital projects and pensions, but maybe we get there over a period of time as opposed to, from right out the door. But it's a good goal. So I appreciate what you've done. This is, we're getting more sophisticated. This is good. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Councilmember Dury.
Thank you. Thank you for actually doing a speed run of the presentation. It's something I do too. So thank you. But first of all, I also thank the staff that's put this together. I heard Jessica and but whoever else, including city manager and your staff. So this is a refreshing change. First of all, just from how this has been presented to us. And I think this 2-year outlook is also something that I think is beneficial just generally for us to forecast on what we need to do. I had some questions. I think it'll be helpful for me to actually have a sit down with you, Mr. Marsh, and
happy to.
At some point and kind of review this in detail. But I think at the offset, I just want to understand so you forecasted a few things. You said that we are down on TOT, stuff, items like that. So it's not like we are unique, right? It's everybody in the coastal.
It's really all in the area. It's not just us. Yeah. I mean, to give you an example, one of my staff was talking to me about this today. Pebble Beach, typically with their golf course, typically to golf at their golf courses, you have to basically, also have a hotel room as well too. They're actually open. And he said they've never done this before during the summer. They're actually opening up the golf course now where you can actually, tee without having to stay at the hotel. So it's a very significant thing. And and we've heard from some of the other just areas that part of the issue is for our area, there are, I don't know if it's a high number, but it's a fair number of people that come down for Canada, for example, that visit our area. And probably a little bit more Monterey Carmel, but it still comes to us, as well too. So that's why we really have to be very cautious with our TOT. I mean, our TOT tends to vary a lot anyway, but this could be definitely a negative impact. We don't know for how long, but hopefully, short term. But it's kind of like what you mentioned earlier with our revenue forecast. I don't like to be aggressive with it all. It doesn't behoove us to be that way. Try to be middle of the road, but realize, the realism that's out there, that we're facing some challenges, both locally and as a nation. So.
Okay. Yeah, and historically we have been conservative in our budgeting practices. So I see that like happening in the future too. And yeah, the Canada thing, I've heard that more long and short. The other question I had was we just had this agenda item related to fee increases, right?
Right.
So does this kind of like address all those fee increases?
Yeah, and that's a great point. So basically what it assumes is that our fees, primarily for, recreation and community development, those are by far the largest, that they incorporated the fee increases that council adopted, and they're assuming a similar level of inflation, basically a fee increase for the second year as well too.
Okay. And it was news to me, by the way, that streaming services were not taxed. I mean, part of me says at least one thing is not taxed, so that's great. But I would say the other question I had was you went into length with respect to the unfunded liability and what's going on there. I think I have various thoughts there. So I think whenever we sit down, but I think the broader thought I had was around the reserves. So you mentioned a couple of agencies there, but my view, reserves right now we're how should I put it? We are doing a lot to get the investment for the reserves that we have so we're taking that FDIC limit of 250,000 and like dividing all of our reserves by that amount and investing that in several pools. There are California agencies that actually do all that work for us. And I think we do not know what the future holds. At any given point in time, I want us to be liquid too.
Yeah.
And these kind of like agencies, there's one agency called CalTrust, for instance.
Yeah.
And so my suggestion is we should examine opportunities to pool all of these reserves so that any given point in time there's an emergency, we can immediately take those reserves and also get the interest that we're looking for. So just a comment, but whenever you're looking into it, I would say maybe you're already looking into it, but just.
And thank you for bringing up CalTrust. In fact, I'm going to probably add that on as well too. That's actually why I added like CAMP and what was the other one I had? Bear with me 1 second. It was CLASS as well too. CalTrust, they're all three of them, and I'll add CalTrust as well too. But basically what they are is they're JPAs that have been established here in California, and they're investment pools. And they, the great thing about all three of them is basically liquidity. You can next day they pull their assets, and they, basically very safe investments as well too. So one of the things, and I'm glad you brought up this point, is I've actually let some of our CDs mature because of what we're looking to do. We talked about this earlier about paying the unfunded actual liability up front. In order to do that, I have to have more liquid funds available at the beginning of the year. Because just as a reminder for the board, a lot of our revenues are from property tax. We only get that twice a year. So I have to basically make sure we have enough cash flow. But that's exactly why I'm looking at that, to kind of give us some more flexibility and also less subject to market valuation, fluctuations as well too. So that's a good point.
So thank you. I mean, it looks like you're proactively looking into this, so that's great. I think the final comment I had was you had this basis of budgeting. You're revising a lot of things related to how things are going to happen in the future. Does this present a problem? I wouldn't call it a problem, but does it present a hassle with respects to how the auditors assess us?
No, and that's a great question. So for example, just so the board kind of understands, in the audit reports themselves, there's only certain funds that they require what's called budget actual statements for. They basically are general fund and are pretty much our special revenue funds. We don't show in those statements, they're not required at all, and we don't show them like budget actuals for our enterprise and internal service funds, basically. But it's important to show when we do our budget, we treat it more on a cash flow basis because we want to know truly what's available as far as what I consider what's called working capital. It's money that you can actually spend, to pay for projects in essence. So that's, in fact, I've worked a lot with Jessica this year to kind of help to explain how that works, because sometimes when you look at a balance sheet, like a good example, it's our sewer fund, you might see that it looks like a large fund balance in there, but a lot of what that is relates to fixed assets, which obviously you can't spend. So you really have to focus more on kind of your net cash, that you have available. So that's why we've kind of made these adjustments, proposed adjustments in the policy to reflect how we truly, budget all of our funds here at the city. So.
Okay, yeah, great job. And I think concrete steps towards a fantastic budget, or should I say big, small, beautiful budget. But
And I also just want to thank all of the departments as well too. They did a great job in working. It's our first 2-year budget and a lot of work. So I really want to give them a lot of credit too. So anyway.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And so we'll go ahead and receive this report. I am going to ask one question though. When you do bring forth the budget, are you going to be bringing forth concurrent policy changes for the reserve policy?
So yeah, what we'll have in the budget, there'll be a section in the budget about the policies themselves, and they will incorporate this. The one question I had for the board was, the mayor brought this up about potentially wanting the pension and capital reserves at $1 million each. Is that a desire of the board? Because I can bring that back.
I want you to bring something back, but I want it to make sense. And I think we're kind of like maxed out on tonight.
It's pretty close.
I think that if you could think about what our comments have been and bring something back concurrently with the budget, because I believe it's going to be, there will be related in some fashion. It'll have to all pencil out.
Absolutely. We'll bring something back next time.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is that okay with everybody? Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to receive that report, and it was excellent. This is our maiden voyage on the 2-year budget, but I think it's going well. And right now we're going to take a break. It's 8:08. Come back at 8:20, and we'll take up the Dancing Monarchs.
Recording stopped.
We're recording, and it is 8:20. So we will reconvene this meeting of the city council, the regular meeting. We're here May 21st. It is 8:20 PM and I'm gonna turn it over to, this is the Dancing Monarchs. And we'll turn it over to our environmental program manager, George First.
Honorable Mayor, council members, I'm happy to be here tonight to present this art donation proposal. The art that is being proposed to be donated has been proposed by Jan and John Stewart, Pacific Grove residents. The title of the piece is Dancing Monarchs, and I'm going to start off with some visuals. This sculpture is stainless steel with fused glass butterflies. And it is one of a series. So I think this artist is a Reno-based artist that has made the original was made for, I think, Jimmy Carter's wife, or in memory of Jimmy Carter's wife in his Georgia property. And he's made a number of similar pieces. So the pictures are not the exact piece, but are similar pictures from the same artist. And this one, I believe, is from Yountville on the corner of an intersection up in Yountville. So you can see it's fused glass with a stainless steel spiral in the shape of a vine. There's a close-up of the fused glass butterflies. The artist, Peter Hazel, based out of Reno. The date of the work is 2025. It's currently being constructed. I think it has an expected completion date around July. It is approximately 12 feet high with a 6 by 6 foot diameter. And like I said, similar installations exist at Water Sound, Florida, Yountville, California, Incline Village, and Jimmy Carter's residence. Further details are available in the attached proposal. I also want to note that one question that came up when this was considered by the BNRC is how durable and wind resistant the sculpture is. And the proposal, the donation to the donors, potential donors, reached out to the artist and confirmed that it is built to be very sturdy and by his expectations would withstand and expected amounts of wind. So this was brought to the BNRC on April 15th, 2025, and the end result was they voted unanimously to recommend that City Council accept this donation. And per policy 900-3, outdoor art first goes to the BNRC, and City Council shall make the final determination on whether the city will accept or decline the proposed donation. And like so many things that come to City Council, location is the big kind of unknown. In the proposal from the potential donor, they mentioned a kind of an intended use of public display, and they mentioned the little kind of rotunda or round area at Chase Park East, which is the small park above Lovers Point, as a potential site. But I think they're open to work with the city and the BNRC and staff, and to optimize where the best site would be if this is accepted. So I think the hope tonight is that the council will kind of indicate if they would like to accept this art piece or not, and then hopefully provide direction regarding the site selection for the sculpture and maybe ask staff to come back with potential locations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We take it out to the public. Anyone in chambers wishing to comment on and I thank you so much. We appreciate BNRC bringing this forward. We appreciate our environmental program manager bringing this forward. And yes, any comment? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard something. Oh,
Excuse me, Mayor Smith. If I could just add, Jan Stewart is here tonight and she has offered to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the owner for being here, waiting with us and watching our budget presentation. I know you enjoyed it. Okay, go ahead. Public comment on the item. There you go.
Honorable Mayor Smith and Pacific Grove City Council. My name is Christine Walkingstick. I'm the chair of the BNRC. On April 15th, 2025, the BNRC meeting, the Pacific Grove, along with donor Jan Stewart, presented the art donation Dancing Monarchs. By all definitions, this is a no strings attached donation that is generously and thoughtfully provided by the Stewarts. The artist, Peter Hazel, as Mr. First pointed out, is quickly gaining notoriety and matching Dancing Monarchs metal and stained glass sculptures gracefully occupy space in other cities' private collections. and with City Council's approval, would honorably complement the Butterfly Town's natural environment as well. The BNRC recommends City Council accept the donation, Dancing Monarchs, and if assistance is needed for specifics such as location scouting, the BNRC is on the ready with excited commissioners for direction from council if requested. So thank you for all that you do. I just wanted to put emphasis and an exclamation point on this donation tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online wishing to comment on the item?
Yes, Mayor, we have two hands raised, now three. Lisa Chiani.
Yes, it's such a generous offer to donate this to the city. The examples we've seen are beautiful and so appropriate for PG. And the fact that there are no strings attached and we can just work this out. I certainly hope you will accept this donation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane Haynes.
Good evening. I live right across the street from Chase Park, and I see Chase Park many times every day. Love it. It makes my life more joyful. But I never see monarch butterflies in Chase Park. So to me, this seems phony because I just don't think monarch butterflies frequent Chase Park. So I don't agree with the enthusiasm for accepting this. I hate to see something that looks like we're profiting off of monarch butterflies, but in fact, they just aren't in this location. That's all. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Christy Thomas.
Hi. Yeah, I'm just looking at the picture, and so I just wanted to clarify. They said that the donors or if Mrs. Walking Stick was available for questions, but I can't tell. Is this something that's on a stand that gets into the ground? In other words, I don't, who's going to do that? Public Works or the donors, you know, I think those things need to be clarified. I know you need to find a location, but I'm just saying, how is it attached? Or is it, you know what I'm saying? Is it, how is it just pounded into a ground somewhere? And again, who's responsible for doing that?
Okay, we'll definitely ask staff. Thank you.
Inga Lawrence and Dimer.
Thank you. It's a gorgeous piece. One of the pictures showed it right by a stop sign, and I thought that was a poor location, a distraction when you're supposed to be stopping. But it's a lovely, lovely piece. The location is going to be incredibly important because I see a potential for children trying to crawl on it or vandalism for sure. And in this day and age, that's right up there. So location and whatever, and how it's going to be anchored, very important. I believe it was presented as that it needs very little maintenance and that the donors were footing the entire thing. So I don't know, but those are all questions to ask, because even to sharp edges, and should a child get up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Arnaud Teal.
Thank you. This is a beautiful donation, so thanks to the donors. I hope you accept it. I know there are very talented people here who can find the best suitable location. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No further hands are raised, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment on the item, bring it back to the council. So before I start discussion, we're going to bifurcate recommendations 1 and 2. So we're going to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down on acceptance first, and then we can talk about how we're going to select the site second. So on the first round, I'm going to go thumbs up with receiving it. I think it's a cool piece. I think we got to, for lack of a more I don't know, erudite term. I think it's cool, and I think we should take it. And so I'm going to vote yes, thumbs up on receiving it under recommendation 1. And now my colleagues can let me know what they think on that, and then we'll take up the location issue. Councilmember McDonald.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, and having attended the BNRC meeting, I might be able to shed some light on the questions that we can also ask the donor as well. The one thing I really appreciated about the proposal for this donation is obviously it is beautiful, no strings attached. They were thoughtful about being cognizant of how we would like it to be installed and where we would like it to be installed, whether that be some kind of raised foundation so people couldn't climb on it, or even putting bushes around it to kind of prevent people from accessing it to climb in it on it. So that has been thought of as well. And I think that the city would probably have a good idea, but I appreciated that they were very open to whatever recommendations, had ideas, but are open to what the city wants to do in that nature of it as a gift for the city. They thought it was so beautiful, they wanted to share it with the city. And so I would support accepting it as well. And I guess one thing, I don't know if we want to make a motion on it as well, is whether we want to ask the BNRC, since they've heard it before and have a relationship now somewhat with the donor from having heard it before, if we'd like any assistance from them in looking for a location, or just leave it to city staff.
Well, the first motion is going to be whether we receive it or not, and then the second will relate to that issue. Is anyone else? Councilmember Garfield.
Yeah, I would support that we accept this as absolutely a gem. And I think that I appreciate Councilmember McDonald's additional comments, as well as Ms. Walkingstick's comments. And I wish we could find a way to incorporate those kind of comments in the form and the application. So I'm just going to, on the side, suggest maybe we could do a little work to get that form to work better, to pull out this kind of information about the why is this a good donation, and what the donor has proposed that makes it an even better donation. So if you want a motion, I would make a motion that we accept this.
Okay, moving recommendation 1.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Second. We got Emilio in a second. Got a motion by Garfield. Any further comments on 1?
I actually have a couple of clarifying questions.
Sure.
One, to the room, anyone who can answer. Installation is to be done by the artist, correct? Okay, and the construction of a base is to be done by Public Works, is that correct?
I believe the stewards have offered to install a footing in conjunction with the installation of the piece.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, as to recommendation 1, we have a motion and a second. So, Councilmember Turi, discussion on it.
Yes, thank you. I'm in favor of the motion. I just had a couple of general questions. So I through this motion, actually, I understood that we can accept pieces of art that are still being proposed. So this is still under construction, right? Is that accurate? Okay. And thank you for the donation. The question for me is like related to the city staff. So at least in my 4 years' time, I've not seen like these donations come up like twice in like 6 months. And so what is the practice here with respect to all these donations? Where do all these donations go? So if this exhibit is ready, say by July, and we have not come to terms with what we need to do with it, where does it get stored? Does it get stored in a certain location? Where does all the artwork get stored?
Councilmember Baduri, through the mayor. There's a number of potential locations. Obviously, Public Works has warehouses that could potentially store pieces. That what comes to mind is, for example, when the TV show was filmed at Lovers Point, some of the kind of artifacts from that were stored at the Public Works warehouse. The library has an art collection for smaller pieces, not necessarily outdoor art, but the library receives a lot of kind of indoor smaller art pieces. And then certain things pertaining, to natural history might go to the museum.
Okay, thank you. And on that note, And noting that we just had a vandalism at the library, if there were pieces of such art that were stolen, what is it? Is it the city absolved of all such responsibility with respect to such pieces?
Councilmember Perduri, I do believe in the art acceptance policy, the city takes full ownership. So we would, lose that art piece if it was stolen. But I think part of the acceptance policy is that we're not liable to, compensate the donor for a lost piece of art that we now own and then potentially lost.
Okay, thank you. I'm calling that out because there was an appraised value listed here. It's not like chump change. And so just something to consider when we're storing, if we're storing, that is. That's one. And then just from an ongoing upkeep and maintenance costs, where does that fit in with respect to the art donation?
Councilmember Perduri, I think that's an excellent question. As part of the proposal, it describes the upkeep as minimal. And, I think that's based on the experience of the artist of, occasional wipe downs with a wet cloth. But that being said, I do think that's a consideration. And, any piece of art is inevitably going to require some maintenance, whether it's regular cleaning by Public Works or, and this kind of reminds me of the similar stainless steel bench that we have at the Monarch Sanctuary that you would, I'm sure lasted a good number of years, but then eventually has needed repair, has needed, little spot welds to keep it sturdy. So nothing lasts forever. And if I trust that this wouldn't require that much maintenance in the, initial years, but as years go on, everything will eventually require maintenance and cost to the city.
Yeah, I think it should, just with my earlier comment, that noting that there seem to be at least twice the number of donations in this year than the past years, it would be prudent to at least look at some kind of fee schedule for this, to just like start the process to say there needs to be some maintenance fee for this activity as compared to anything else, so that folks know that whatever art that you provide or whatever piece that you provide does require some kind of, even if it's warehouse storing. If you receive 100 exhibits, what are we going to do with it? So it just there needs to be some kind of like allocation of cost associated with this. And I think it needs to be passed on to whoever is donating it. But I appreciate the donation. I'm supportive of this. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take a voice vote on just the acceptance of the art. And that, I think one thing, just this last comment I heard about the cost, I think that if we take it, we kind of like, we're saying we're going to take it for all purposes. So the vote is to take it or not take it. And we kind of have to accept the cost if we do accept the donation, or we can say no and be done with it. So I think that's what I'm thinking about. But let's see. Yeah. So let's do a roll call vote. Just Sandra, why don't we just take a roll call vote on acceptance?
Okay.
Motion one.
We have
Garfield, no. Amelia.
Garfield moved. Mayor Pro Tem second. Councilmember Garfield?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmember Walking Stick?
Aye.
Councilmember Rao?
That's a beautiful piece. Thank you. And I vote yes.
Councilmember Perduri?
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
And Mayor Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. So turning now to the second paragraph, I like this report. It's just like 1, 2, bang, bang, get them. So, okay, going to the second recommendation here. The BNRC had wanted to create a subcommittee. My personal preference would not be to create a subcommittee. I think staff needs to be involved and be leading the charge on where to put this due to a number of things, including safety issues, storage issues and things like that, because I don't want this thing dragging on for 6 months to a year as when people are deciding where to put it. And we are absorbing the cost. We just did a 7-0 vote to absorb the cost to house this thing, make sure it doesn't get messed up and the like. So my personal opinion is, and my vote will be that we have staff come back with some locations. And we've gone down that road before, but I think that's probably what we're going to have to do. And then at that time, relevant committees can make public comment or whatever else in other ways influence the decision that or give their input on the decision to staff in the environmental programs area and public works area. So that would be my assessment, but I will turn it over to the council for further discussion. Councilmember Rao.
Thank you. I agree with you that I think the staff should be responsible. They understand the locations and the I guess the pros and cons. I can think of about 3 places offhand, but I think I'd like to see the staff weigh in first and see what they come up with. But it's a beautiful piece, and I think, you know, even if it was on the edge of town coming in near the visitor center, that would be a beautiful place, and it would really set the tone. You know, even in the intersection of Forest and Lighthouse, I mean, something where it's a high traffic area where we could see it. I would also say that if we could find a location, and I think of the visitor center, because we could actually, you know, in this enhancement with the cameras, maybe we could put an outdoor camera on it just to make sure that it's, you know, appropriately covered.
Thank you. Councilmember Garfield, and then go to Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I would agree that security is one of the issues, one of the criteria for a site selection. I think it's also, to go back to the maintenance and responsibilities, I think with the mural on the rec trail, we found that there was a problem if the city doesn't completely own the art piece. With all that entails. So with that lesson in mind, I would support the idea of we take it, it's ours, we take care of it. The opportunity that we have here is pretty nifty. So it's a beautiful piece. And it also gives us an opportunity to educate, inform, and guide our visitors. So wherever it is, we can plant pollinator plants around it. We can make a butterfly garden. We can have signs that tell people about what to plant and what not to plant to support monarchs. We can do something that people have in the business community have always wanted, was a way to draw people from the rec trail, if that's where it goes, into downtown. By having a map that describes, you can find out more at the museum. Here's a map. This is where the museum is. Here's the butterfly sanctuary. Here's how to get to it. And see if we can draw people with the informational part about signage and the beauty of pollinator plants that would in fact have butterflies at the site, and an opportunity to educate them and bring them into our other institutions. So I think that my preference would be the plaza at Lighthouse and at the rec trail. Because that's really a heavily trafficked area. But I think the criteria for making it an educational opportunity about the plants, the location, and all that stuff would be something I don't want to pass up.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. For this, I see it's 12 feet by 6 feet by 6 feet. And it's not a small project. And if it gets, I could think of several locations, but I'm going to hear what the staff has to say. The question I had was, what would be the cost factor for the staff to either, it sounds like the person who's doing the butterfly will install it also, but if just curious how much the staff would be. That's one question. Then the other question I have is, if it's near the coast, do you need a coastal permit? I'm just curious. Okay. Just curious if it's near the coast, like the Silmarch. I'm just using.
Can anyone here even opine on that at this point?
I think our coastal commission expert is left. So
Is that Mr.
I'm
Gibbs?
going to guess if it's in the coastal zone, there's a good chance we will need one. Whether or not it's a big permit or just a small exempt permit is something we need to look into.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
that
just
would be
curious.
part of the analysis of bringing it back, right? Okay. Anything else?
No, not.
Okay.
I think it's a good piece.
Councilmember Rowe, yes.
I just want to acknowledge, Councilmember Garfield made some great points about how we can use this in addition to it just being a beautiful piece. We could also add a QR code that would take you to the museum's landing page on the monarch butterflies. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity with this piece, not just because it's beautiful, but, education and other things. So I think the staff is well equipped to find an appropriate location.
Councilmember Garfield, did you indicate your position on that, staff versus subcommittee? You said staff.
I'm sorry, I'm going along with the staff idea. I was giving stuff my thoughts.
Okay.
But if anybody ever wants to sit on a subcommittee, I'd be happy to volunteer.
Okay. Well, it looks like we're not going down that road, but okay, that's noted. Noted. Councilmember McDonald.
Sorry, I liked the comments that Councilmember Garfield made as well. One of the things I liked during the BNRC presentation was when the donor brought up the idea of potentially putting plants around it, because that was kind of the thought too, tying in that theme, because a foundation wouldn't be as attractive and people would be more likely to climb that. But I thought, yes, if we had some kind of other plants or pollinators that served as a barrier to it where people could enjoy it. I know they had mentioned partly people might want to take pictures with it. So having it in a location that has a nice background for pictures was one of the thoughts. So that might be something for staff to consider and may or may not determine the location. And as far as BNRC input, if staff found that useful to work together based on what they've learned so far, they could reach out for that input.
Thank you very much. I agree. Councilmember Walking Stick.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, first off with the, and I don't want to speak for the artist on this point at all, but as an idea for storing it until needed, Peter Hazel has a very large studio up in Reno and might be able to store it until we actually have need of it and are ready to install. Again, not speaking on his behalf, but as an idea. Also, we've installed other statues and we've done a mural within the coastal zone. So I think getting the approval on that won't pose an obstacle. This is not really any different than anything else we've done. And I'm okay with the staff search. I would like them to include the ideas or the wishes of Jan and John Stewart, as possible. There's going to be considerations for that for sure. But I definitely lean towards, like everybody else, I think wanting a highly trafficked area, something that's going to be a high profile piece for our community. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So at this time, sounds pretty unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to direct staff to bring back location for council for approval.
So moved.
Oh, Councilmember Rao with the motion. Do I have a second? Second by McDonald. Did you have any comments, Councilmember Dury? Okay. All right. Well, let's take a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Rao?
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
Councilmember Walking Stick?
Aye.
Councilmember Baduri?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmember Garfield?
Aye.
Mayor Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the art donation. We really appreciate it. Thank you to the BNRC for working on that for us. Thank you, Mr. First. And we are not completed with the night. We have one item that was pulled, which is the work plan item. And this item was intended to we could get eyeballs on it. We've talked about it a number of times. But I believe the city manager wanted us to be able to take a look at the final. So that's why it's on the agenda tonight. But we have discussed it for a while. So at this time, we'll check to see if Ms. Chiani is still online to comment on the item.
Where is it?
Yes.
Is she?
Yes, she's here.
9.
It's 9B, and we don't have numbers on the bottom of these pages, so I'm trying to find it.
Well, I guess the question is, where did I?
No, that's the problem. I don't have 94.
Ah, got it.
Okay.
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 She has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Ms. Chiani.
Thank you. I don't believe the completed matrix with supporting tasks has been presented to the public before, so I'm sorry it was on the consent agenda. I'm most concerned about the environmental stewardship priority area goals 3.2, protect and preserve the natural resources of Pacific Grove. The supporting task is to quote, assess wildlife protection efforts in the city that can be achieved within available resources and present feasible measures to the city council for consideration, end quote. The lead divisions or support are shown as the police department and public works. There's no indication in the matrix that public works would be assessing the recommendations of the council's coastal wildlife protection subcommittee that were approved by council. Council unanimously approved measures at their September 21st, 2022 meeting to carry out the recommendations of their coastal wildlife protection subcommittee based on the recommendations of the coastal wildlife protection advisory committee, a volunteer group of community scientists and naturalists assembled by the former mayor. The CWPAC developed recommendations to mitigate identified threats to coastal wildlife. Implementation has been interrupted by a series of staffing changes in the police department and the community development department. As council member Emilio is aware, protective measures involve the police department hiring community service officers, CSOs, and training them in enforcing wildlife protection ordinances. Those measures got started and worked well, but it's not clear that they're still being carried out in full. There's much work still to be done to develop language for the LCP amendments, as can be seen in the 2023 goals and work plan matrix and the city manager's consolidated work plan priorities document included in a March goals agenda item this year. Those efforts ended when the contract planner departed last year. Since it's still a rough draft document, completion of the proposed LCP amendment language could be addressed by BNRC's Standing Wildlife Subcommittee in concert with their liaison and staff liaison, Environmental Programs Manager George First. In any case, it's not clear in the matrix what wildlife protection efforts Public Works would be assessing to determine their feasibility. I think the only Public Works staff with a role is the Environmental Programs Manager working with BNRC and their Standing Wildlife Subcommittee to work out the language of the CWPAC, the Coastal Wildlife Protection Advisory Committee, and to have actual language that they'd be working with. So I don't know what Public Works is supposed to address. It's not clear to me in the matrix, and I hope it will be made more specific, and BNRC and Mr. First will be involved. Thank you.
Okay, any other folks online? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment on the item. This item has been, we've basically talked about this 3 or 4 times, so it is just the final draft of what we've talked about 3 or 4 times, and I actually think that it's very well done, and I think it's really succinct. The matrix is a high level summary of things that are going to be done. It's not like written out into a master plan. It's a high level summary for like a 1-page so that the public can see what we're doing on a high level. Obviously, there's going to be more details in what gets actually done out in the field and what staff is going to prepare to do these things. So I think that that should be also taken into consideration. This is a high level thing. We wanted to make sure, Mr. Mogensen, I believe, wanted to make sure that everybody put eyeballs on what our final was and where we ended up. And I think it's very clear, and I dare I say manageable. We'll see what happens over the next 18 months, but hopefully we can get everything on here done would be the idea. So I'll recognize others now at this time that want to speak. Councilman Walkingstick.
Thank you, Your Honor. Directly addressing the wildlife protection efforts and I'll say the vagueness of that target. I believe, and George first can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it's intentionally vague or broad, I should say, because it does not make assumptions about what can or cannot be achieved. We leave it open to the city to evaluate everything, evaluate the spectrum of wildlife and try to find opportunities wherever they may lie. We're not narrowly defining their focus for them. And by doing that, excluding other areas where we might have been able to make headway or save wildlife. So I can understand your desire for specificity when you create a plan. I want to execute a specific thing and have a specific outcome, a specific result. But in this case, it's analysis. So we're trying to take from my perspective, from my view, I want a broad view on this so that we can see more of a whole picture situation and try and find opportunities wherever we can. Anyway, I wanted to directly address that. So you had a direct answer. Thank you.
Councilmember Rao.
Yeah, and I think what I agree with Councilmember Walking Stick. I think that was well put. When we set the staff to put the goals together, we wanted them to be smart. And most importantly, we wanted them to be achievable and something that we felt that we could do instead of, oh, here's the plan from last time and we didn't get anything done, but, let's have another plan. And I think that the staff did a great job of talking about what the elements are and what we need to do to make that happen. So for me, I think it's a well put together statement. I think the tasks maybe are specifically vague, but I think they're probably vague for a reason. And I would approve this. I would approve this report.
Do I want to make a motion to do so?
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor. Approve the recommended action. Do I have a second? Okay, Emilio, can you say it again? Sorry.
Yeah.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right. Okay, motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Councilman McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and one thing I did want to point out, because I had asked about this item as well, and thank you to the city manager for responding about that. Because even though it's something where the plan will develop over time, I also like the idea of giving the flexibility to identify what are the best things we've proposed in the past, for example, the CSOs, and we're looking at that potential implementation, not waiting till the end of the whole program, but something that will be evolving over time. And we may find that there's a better solution. I think this leaves leeway for that better solution. Would that be an accurate assessment, Mr. Mogensen?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Rao? Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmember Garfield? Councilmember Baduri? Councilmembers Walking Stick?
Aye.
And Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
Mayor
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, and I think that brings us to the end of the agenda tonight. All right, thanks everybody for hanging in. Thanks out there on the virtual world. Thank you for hanging in there, and meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next time.